the man from down under with a little thunder, WWE and Pro Wrestling Hall of Famer, Bushwhacker Luke. I hear something else comes from down under too. The Wrestling with Figs podcast with my mates Chris and James. You gotta tune into this great podcast because Chris and James will give you all the inside info. Whoa! Yay!
G'day and welcome to the pilot episode of the Wrestling with Figs podcast, nostalgia and collecting from a down under perspective. I'm your host, James Thomas, and joining me all the way over from the west coast of Australia is...
Chris Maddock, here I am. I am your co-host for this podcast, and I'll be bringing you all the news, views, and previews and reviews of everything fig-related down under.
Brilliant stuff, Chris. How good's this, buddy? Our very own podcast.
Well, mate, it's always nice to spend time with you. We've been doing this for a while, but we're turning into a podcast. It's very exciting and great to finally get our recording locked down.
100%, mate. Couldn't agree anymore. Look, for those tuning in for this episode, this is a very condensed episode. Today, we're just basically going over what the Wrestling with Figs podcast is all about and a little bit about the big fella and myself. So,
because why would you want to listen to us if you don't know who we are?
Exactly right. Exactly right. And we've got a lot to share, Chris, haven't we?
Well, you do. Well, most of my stuff's pretty low end, but you've got all the high end stuff to brag about.
Oh, it's your knowledge. You know, it's the knowledge that we could share in the game of collecting, which is why I think a lot of our listeners will be tuning in.
So, mate, tell us, what is the WWFP podcast all about?
Yeah, in my opinion, Chris, and you can obviously share yours too. For me, I really want to put collecting and nostalgia on the map with a down under perspective. You know, we hear a lot about overseas collections and what's going on around the world. But for us, I want to put Australia and New Zealand on the map, and that's why we're here. What about you?
When you talk about putting Australia on the map, right now in the collecting world, Australia and New Zealand, there are so many people doing amazing things. Now, I'm not going to go through and list them all at the moment, but just a couple of little people who we should mention. They're not little in size, but they're little in business at the moment, but they're getting bigger and bigger. Sorry about that one, Portia and Adam. Junk Shop Dog doing a great job with the Poppy figures. You've got John Lucas Reyes, who does a lot of the graphics for Heels and Faces and also for the wrestling Major Wrestling podcast. And people building customs, Nick Johnson. There's just so many amazing Australian. Brutus Valentine with the LJN book. It's all happening, and we need to take ownership for how good our community is doing.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. And look, we just want to show the rest of the world just how passionate we are over here in the beautiful land down under about collecting.
So the show, mate, how often's the show?
So the show will be dropping every fortnight. And it won't be
Thursday?
Yeah. No, that'll be the live show. So how about we discuss the live show? So quick backstory. So the podcast is, I guess, inspired by our live stream show that we put on for our private group, which is Figs Down Under. And that drops every Thursday fortnight. And what the Wrestling with Figs podcast will be the audio version of that. So but a very condensed version of that, may I say. Anything to add to that, mate?
Just that if you join the community, you can tune into the live show as it happens. And also, while you're tuning in, there's been giveaways. There are awesome images of things that are happening around the community, which you can see live, or you can listen back on the podcast after launch.
Yeah, so I'd encourage anyone from around the world to join our Figs Down Under group. It's a private group, no cost, great community, great people, and we all look after one another. And it's all about the passion we share and the passion we have for nostalgia and collecting our childhood memories.
And what else will we be discussing on it?
On the show, look, we'll be discussing obviously wrestling figures. Both you and I are pretty passionate wrestling figure collectors. I also collect Ninja Turtles. We'll be discussing a little bit about Ninja Turtles, sports cards. I'm a huge basketball fan, so sports cards will be another thing where we'll be talking about, but a whole array of things, DVDs, VHSs, anything nostalgic or 80s and 90s collectibles we will be talking about.
And there'll be a bit of fun as well. We always look back at some funnier things as well, including on the most recent live stream, my Bart Simpson Luchador doll, still not sold on eBay. $1,550. Buy it now. Still, somebody buy my doll.
Was that actually yours?
No, it wasn't. It wasn't. I just playing.
Well, on a serious note, and there is a section on our podcast where it's what's online, and Chris is talking to that segment, which is why I thought I'd share again. And one of our listeners to buy is the WrestleMania 3 Silverdome chair backing signed by Hulk Hogan and Ricky the Dragon Steamboat. So anyone listening, please buy that. We want that piece down under.
How good is it that Ricky the Dragon wrote on the chairback, I stole the show. I love it. Next to Hulk's signature, because that's the most iconic WrestleMania moment when Hulk slams Andre, and yet Ricky Steamboat's written, I stole the show. I love it. Love it, Ricky.
Yeah, yeah.
Good
and what about you, mate?
Too.
What's that, mate?
Good bloke, apparently, Ricky the Dragon.
Is he? Yeah, nice. That's always good to hear. You do hear of many of them. I guess it's a lot of people you looked up to as a child or idolized. You hear they're a bit of a dickhead and you think, oh, such a shame.
Remind me, on the next live stream, I'll tell you a story about when I met one of my AFL Aussie footy heroes as a kid, and he completely blanked me. I'll tell you on the next Thursday.
Wow. Okay, look forward to it. So, Chris, I've discussed what we'll be talking about each fortnight, but if I covered everything, what about anything from you?
Well, I think we'll be interviewing collectors here. We'll be interviewing collectors from around the world. We'll be focusing on collecting, but also looking at some of the big events. It won't be a wrestling podcast. We won't be focusing on results from SmackDown and Raw. But when there's big events on, we'll definitely have a look, and also looking at those events to see what figures might be coming out soon. As we see with characters like the Fiend, they take the toy, the character, and turn it into a brilliant toy to represent the character. So we'll be keeping an eye out for what's happening. A lot of releases in the WWE at the moment as well. We will also be trying to bring some joy to our listeners and talking about the simple times. Do you want to add more to that, James?
Yeah, look, nostalgia is a word we use a lot over here in the Wrestling Figures podcast, Wrestling with Figs podcast, I should say, because we're all nostalgia addicts, right? That's why we collect. That's why we're here. It's why we tune into these great shows. So we, bringing you guys joy, taking you back to a time when life was simple. That's what this show is all about. And look, it wouldn't be a podcast without some merch dropping. So each month or every couple of months, we'll be dropping some kind of merch. So stay tuned for that.
And there's obviously no pressure from our followers to buy anything, but everything you buy helps us create a better show. Absolutely.
Well, I think we've summed up the show reasonably well, wouldn't you say?
I think it was better than last time we tried this.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, guys, once again, if you want to join us at the Figs Down Under community, head over to Facebook, and it's Figs Down Under. Answer the 3 questions, and we'll welcome you with open arms. Well, how about we get into a little bit about us?
Sure.
So how did we get here, mate? How did we meet?
I suppose I should answer that question as the creator of the FDU community. Back about 18 months ago, just noticed there were so many people buying and selling within Australia, but everyone was using American Facebook groups, American sites. We needed to have our own body where we could come together and share what we have as collectors. I also got a bit over the raffling side of figures. It seems to be a business. The term investment gets used a lot these days with toys, and I don't like it. I don't like it as an investment, same as sports cards and everything else. So trying to create a group where collectors could come together and be that, collectors, and share and help each other. Created it about 18 months ago, and all of a sudden, within a couple of weeks, we had 50 members. Then another week later, 100 members, then 200 members. Now we're really close to 1,000 members and building every week. It's so good to see, and seeing some of those awesome hidden treasures that we didn't even know were in Australia, graded pieces, prototypes, and in New Zealand as well.
Yeah, 100%. Look, I remember meeting you, I think it was one of the American groups. Wouldn't that be right? That was a few years ago.
Yeah, I think you were trying to buy one of my graded, I think it was a graded Bret the Hitman Hart figure.
Okay. I don't even remember that.
That's how we started chatting. It could have been a Series 8, Bret, or it could have been a earlier series. And you wanted it, and I was driving a hard bargain, and I didn't want to sell it, and then you made me a really good offer of a non-graded Hitman and a Black Pants Hasbro Shawn Michaels.
That's right.
Do you remember that deal? Yeah,
I do. I don't remember it being for Brett the Hitman Hart though.
What was it? What was the graded figure? So long ago. I'll look it up.
Yeah.
I'll go back. Our message history is probably too long these days to go back that far. But
Jeez, got a good memory.
Yes, it's. I think that was our first real deal, and then after that, it was just really good. And I think you bought some cases off me for your non-graded Hasbros to ship them over to UKG, and got chatting and realised that you seem to be from the outside a pretty good bloke. So seem to be. Don't want to get ahead of myself here, but very good.
Truth be told, listeners, Chris and I have never actually met in person. It's only ever been online. One of those creepy friendships that we've only met online, hey?
And I'm not going to transfer you my bank account details just yet. Maybe in the future. We'll just see. If we can build a longer relationship, then we can exchange numbers. That's
right. It's like Chris is playing hard to get. I'm playing hard to want. That's been my tactic. No, look, it's a lot of fun. It's great working with Chris, great working with our community. A little bit about me. I live on the east coast of Australia in a place called Port Macquarie, which is absolute paradise. 2444 for all those that living out this way. High five. Represent. So it's about 4 hours north of Sydney, New South Wales. Love where I live. Happily married, 2 kids, and I'm a very, very passionate collector. Look, how about I just go into what I collect and
go for that. You can go first.
Possession. Yeah, sure. So for me, I've been collecting most of my life, I would say. I remember as a kid, I never really used to play with my figures. It was always buy them, put them on a shelf, have them on display, and go outside and play. That's just been that's the way I've always been. That has carried over into my adult life now that as I keep saying, life gets busy, and you kind of want to reminisce on those special times in your childhood, and that's exactly what I'm doing. But for me, I'm an avid WWF Hasbro fan. Always have been, always will be. And for me, I collect the series 1 to 4 only. I've actually got the whole set loose, but the series 1 to 4, I've actually collected mint on card. They are my absolute pride and joy. I've also dabbled in the prototype game. Really, really exciting game, but very bloody expensive. I just love the history and the understanding of how these little plastic men come to life in a very special time of our childhood, right? Which was 90 to 91. I would have been 10 years old, 11 years old. So I have very, very fond memories of the Hasbro line. I also collect Ninja Turtle stuff. Got some vintage Ninja Turtle stuff, but I also collect the NECA line, both the movie and the cartoon, which I think they are absolutely killing. And if you're not on those, get on those. They are absolutely brilliant. And last but not least, I'm a huge NBA fan, but Michael Jordan has been one of my idols all my life, and I've got a very substantial Upper Deck signed memorabilia collection of Michael Jordan. Got his rookie card, got his a lot of his Fleer cards. So I collect all things Michael Jordan as well. So very passionate fan.
Does that make you a Bulls fan?
You know what? Funny enough, I'm not. I'm a San Antonio Spurs fan. And for those listening to this show, currently I'm wearing a Boston Celtics Larry Bird jersey. I'm one confused mofo when it comes to the NBA.
Well, American culture is very popular in Australia, and
it is.
NBA especially is so huge here because the quality of basketball is so much better than the NBL. No disrespect to our friends at the NBL if they're listening. I will say this though, that I have about 8 different hats for different teams, and I went through a phase where I bought a lot of Charlotte Hornet hats because my daughter's name's Charlotte. I also went through a phase of buying Philadelphia hats recently because I was pretty excited that Ben Simmons was coming into the NBA. And then now I'm not so excited after recent events. Might have to put that one away.
Yeah. What happened?
I'll tell you after the show. He missed a couple of free throws in the clutch moments of the game. And I don't think he can't ever go back to Philly. The fans have turned.
He crumbled, did he?
He crumbled. He had